Welcome back to Navy Exclusive, your ultimate source for everything involving global naval power, maritime strategy, and the cutting-edge stories of the high seas. Fish Tag Zero today. We are diving straight into the intense naval theater in the Middle East, where the balance of power has just been completely shattered. The United States has struck Iran's navy once again, and this time we have undeniable proof. New satellite imagery has just confirmed severe damage on 3 major Iranian vessels, and the images are staggering. This is a massive blow to their maritime capabilities, so let us break down exactly what happened. First, let us talk about the Makran, which is essentially Iran's crown jewel. This massive vessel started its life as a commercial supertanker, but was later converted into a giant floating base ship. It was specially designed to project power by carrying and launching massive waves of drones. But the latest satellite images tell a very different story, showing a massive, gaping hole blown right through its deck. Fish Tag 1, the ship is completely incapacitated, and its ability to launch drone strikes has been entirely neutralized for the foreseeable future. Next up is the Shaheed Mahdavi, a vessel belonging directly to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy. This ship was a versatile threat, capable of launching deadly kamikaze drones, supporting fast attack boats, and acting as a mobile command platform. The latest imagery of this ship, well, it appears to be sitting directly on the bottom of the ocean, completely sunk. Fish Tag 2, the final ship in this specific trio, is the Kurdistan. Satellite images show it sustained light to moderate damage from the recent airstrikes. It is still afloat, but it has been completely knocked out of the fight. 3 major ships, 1 likely sunk, 1 heavily damaged, and 1 completely out of action. And you need to understand, these were not just random targets picked out of a hat. These vessels formed the absolute backbone of Iran's ability to project power, far beyond its own shores. But those 3 ships are just the ones we currently have satellite confirmation on. When you zoom out, the full picture of what American and Israeli forces have done to Iran's naval forces is absolutely staggering. Since this intense conflict kicked off in an operation the United States military calls Operation Epic Fury, American forces have been relentless. They have struck somewhere around 43 or more Iranian ships and vessels. Let me say that again. Over 40 vessels have been hit. Fish Tag 3, and these were not all large battleships. A huge portion of them were Iran's fast attack craft. These are the small, fast, missile-armed boats that the Revolutionary Guards relied on for their signature swarming tactics and harassment in narrow waterways. Other targets included dedicated mine layers. Yes, Iran had specific ships designed for planting deadly naval mines right in the vital Strait of Hormuz. American planes went after those mine layers specifically to keep the shipping lanes open. The military also targeted support vessels, patrol boats, and logistics ships. And how exactly did the U.S. Navy pull this off? Well, they used pretty much every single tool in the entire box. You had F-18 Super Hornets flying off massive carrier decks, dropping precision-guided bombs. In one particularly dramatic case, bombs were guided right down the smokestacks of Iranian tankers that attempted to run the blockade. Fish Tag 4, you also had the exact same jets using their 20mm cannons to disable ships by targeting their rudders. This clever tactic took them out of action, without sinking them outright. Then there was the USS Spruance, a highly advanced guided missile destroyer. The Spruance actually fired its 5-inch deck gun at an Iranian cargo ship. This marks the first time a U.S. Navy surface ship has used its main gun against an enemy vessel in nearly 4 decades. Think about that for a second. Fish Tag 5. On top of all that, taunting strikes hitting Iranian naval installations on land, ports, dry docks, and command centers. The early strikes also specifically targeted the IRIS Shaheed Bagheri, which served as Iran's primary drone and helicopter carrier. This ship was basically their attempt at building a naval aviation capability on the cheap. Taking that ship out early was a massive priority for the Pentagon because it was designed to launch waves of drones across wide maritime spaces. But now, it is completely gone. Experts who track these military engagements say what the U.S. effectively did in the very first few weeks was completely dismantle Iran's conventional naval power. Everyone knew Iran was never going to go toe-to-toe with American aircraft carriers in a traditional sense. Their strategy was always entirely asymmetric, relying on fast boats, hidden mines, drones, and anti-ship missiles. But the U.S. military systematically went after all of it. What is left of the Iranian Navy at this point is scattered, severely degraded, and operating under constant, unyielding surveillance. Now, here is where things get tense in a completely different way. Because even though the heavy fighting has slowed down and there is a ceasefire of sorts, the naval blockade is still very much active. As of right now, the U.S. has more than 20 warships enforcing a full naval blockade of all major Iranian ports. We are talking about 2 full carrier strike groups, the USS Abraham Lincoln and the USS George H.W. Bush. Each of these massive carriers brings its own escorts, advanced aircraft, and overwhelming firepower. On top of those forces, there is also an amphibious-ready group on station. This is basically a small invasion force sitting on standby featuring assault ships, transport docks, and thousands of heavily armed Marines ready to move if the order comes. American forces have already redirected 85 commercial vessels that were attempting to reach Iranian ports. They simply turned them around. Furthermore, 4 ships have been physically disabled, stopped dead in the water, just to make a point. The blockade zone covers the entirety of the Iranian coastline, stretching all the way from the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman. Interestingly, the U.S. Navy is not even waiting at the strait itself. The Strait of Hormuz is simply too narrow, too heavily mined, and too dangerous for large warships. Instead, American warships sit further east in the open waters of the Gulf of Oman, acting like a massive net. Ships leave Iranian ports, clear the narrow strait, and then they find the U.S. Navy waiting right there for them. American officials have described this strategy pretty bluntly, stating that our net is the Gulf of Oman, and to make absolutely sure no one is slipping fresh mines into those vital waters, the U.S. has also deployed advanced minesweepers. This includes Venture-class dedicated mine countermeasure ships, along with literal combat ships fitted with high-tech mine-hunting equipment. Because Iran did put mines in the strait, and they even confirmed it themselves. So clearing that passage remains an ongoing, highly dangerous operation. Meanwhile, dozens of U.S. Air Force tanker jets are still parked at Ben Gurion Airport in Israel. There are so many of these massive refueling planes that they are causing actual operational problems for the airport because they are taking up every single inch of available space. Those aircraft are stationed there to give American fighter jets the extended range needed to reach Iran if the fighting restarts. They are expected to stay through at least the end of this year. Will that intense blockade hold? And for how long can Iran survive economically before something finally gives? Fishtag 6. While we contemplate that, I want to spend a minute on one ship in particular, because its story is honestly kind of remarkable. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the most advanced aircraft carrier ever built, a 100,000-ton nuclear power